Hello everyone, my name is Fatima and welcome back to the Race Edit. And if you're new here, welcome to the Race Edit and welcome to a new episode. Welcome to my Monaco 2025 Grand Prix race review, where I talk all things about the Monaco Grand Prix. This Grand Prix specifically, we had a mandatory two-stopper to see if that would spice things up a bit, and I think it did, but I still think Monaco is Monaco, and we love it for historic reasons. Is it the best fit for modern day Formula One cars because they're just so wide? Maybe not, but with the new regulations coming on, and maybe with the cars getting a bit more narrower, we might get some more exciting things happening in Monaco in the near future. Especially if they continue on this mandatory two-stopper. We'll see, fingers crossed. But in the meantime, let's discuss our race weekend. So, for those of you who know how I like to do this, is I go by qualifying. I just go through that really quickly, and then I talk about things that interested me in this race. And I think it's going to be an interesting one, this one, because a lot of the things that made me very excited this race didn't happen towards the front of the grid. It was really towards the end of the grid that I was like, interesting. But let's talk about qualifying. So we had Oliver Behrman, who qualified 17, but because of his 10th place grid drop, he actually started the race 20th. Then we had Stroll 19th, Colapinto 18th, Gasly 17th, Bortoleto 16th. And then we get to the interesting stuff where we actually had Kimi Antonelli, who did make it into Q2, but because he crashed, he didn't actually get to qualify for Q2 because of that crash. The car was not going to be able to get fixed in time. Then we had George Russell qualify 14th due to a DNF. His car just shut off. So the worst place to qualify badly, as we know on the Formula One calendar, is Monaco because Monaco is Monaco. So Mercedes, they already had a tough weekend ahead of them to at least try and get into the points, and having both of your drivers qualify 15th and 14th, rough. Then we had Nico Hulkenberg 13th, Yuki Tsunoda 12th, Carlos Sainz 11th, Alex Albon 10th, Liam Lawson, good for him, 9th, Esteban Ocon 8th. We had Lewis Hamilton, who started the race 7th, but he did actually qualify 4th. But because of a penalty due to impeding Verstappen, he had a 3 place grid drop, so he started the race 7th. Then we had Fernando Alonso qualify 6th. So in result, Alonso 6th, Isaac Hadjar 5th, Verstappen 4th, Piastri 3rd, and oh my gosh, what a lap from Lando Norris, because it looks like Charles Leclerc was going to get pole position in his home country, but no, that final lap from Norris took pole position from Leclerc and gave Lando Norris P1. And we know how Monaco goes. If you get pole position, you are most likely to win that race if you're lucky. So, what happened during this race? What happened during this race? You know, I feel like there's mixed results from people about this race. I think that a lot happened during this race, but at the same time, nothing also happened this race. Like, it was exciting for, I don't want to say the wrong reasons, but it was exciting for reasons that I didn't think was going to be exciting for. I was hoping for more overtakes, and I felt like every single driver who tried to overtake crashed. Well, that is what happened. So we have the race result with Gasly, who DNF'd due to a crash, and then Alonso. Um, Kimi Antonelli finished the race 18th, Yuki Tsunoda 17th, Hulkenberg 16th, Stroll 15th, Bortoleto 14th, Colapinto 13th. Oliver Behrman finished the race 12th, which is really good for the position that he started the race in, if we're going to be honest. Russell 11th, and we will get into that. Sainz 10th, Alexander Albon 9th, Lawson 8th, really good for Liam Lawson. Ocon 7th, Isaac Hadjar 6th, Lewis Hamilton 5th, Verstappen 4th, Piastri 3rd, Leclerc 2nd, and Lando Norris won his first Monaco Grand Prix. This is Lando Norris's first Monaco Grand Prix win, and this is a special race to win. It's a very special race to win. So good on Lando. He really kept it together, especially towards the end of the race when he was under pressure. But we will get into that. I really want to talk about some things that did excite me during this race, or just things that stuck out to me as well. So we're just going to talk about what I have written down in the order of my notes, to be honest. I think that's the best way to do it. So I almost thought Charles was going to get the better of Lando Norris during lap one because Lando Norris had that lockup, and it looks like Charles is going to get ahead of him. He didn't. Lando did, in result, keep the lead and kept the lead for a long time during the race, up until the pit stops, obviously. And of course, towards the end of the race, when Max Verstappen was being a menace. We'll talk about that though. But he held it together. He held it together. And if you remember correctly, last year Lando's pole to win conversion, or pole to even lap turn one conversion, was not so good. So the fact that he's been able to do that, I mean, this is only his second. I think this was his second pole position this season so far. Um, he did well. So good on Lando. Then we have Gabriel Bortoleto, which he did bring out our first yellow flag and also our first VSC. He did an overtake on Kimi Antonelli, but in result, he went on the outside. He got the overtake done, but then Kimi Antonelli was over on the inside, and Gabriel just there was no room. Obviously, it was Kimi's right, and he ended up crashing. So I thought that was Bortoleto's race done. It was not. He was able to pull the car out, and he was able to finish the race, which is it's better to finish the race, in my opinion, um, than to not. The worst is when you're so close to finishing the race and then on the last lap you crash, like George Russell did was it 23 Singapore, I want to say, possibly? Yeah, I think it was 23 Singapore. So he was able to rectify and finish the race, and he finished, you know, 14th. So I think, hey, not in the points, but at least he finished the race. When Gabriel Bartolotto crashed, that is when Yuki Tsunoda went into the pits, and this was the beginning of the end for Yuki's race, honestly, because he was one of the first few that pit early. And my gosh, Monaco, like you just can't get by. Like the traffic is insane, and like yeah, it was just the beginning. This was just not Yuki's weekend. I'm not going to lie. I feel like his time at Red Bull so far has been up and down and up and down. Like one week he's like yes, and the next week he's like oh no. So we'll see what happens in Spain next week, I guess, won't we? Then we also had on lap 9, Pierre Gasly crashed. On lap 9, he had a brake failure, as we saw, and in the result he hit the back of Yuki's car, and his left tire just completely mashed, completely gone, and he had to retire from the race. I was so shocked that Yuki's car didn't get damaged from this. I was like, well, this is Yuki's race over as well too, but I guess not. So I felt like the second person who tried to overtake, not even felt like it was the second person who tried to overtake, they as well crashed the car. And I feel like after that, everyone else was like, we're just not going to. The majority of the guys who did try to overtake, it just, Monaco's not the place to do it, which is why there's a lot of controversy around Monaco. And just a side note, I know people are like, we need to get rid of Monaco, we need to get rid of Monaco. You guys, they're not going to get rid of Monaco. Monaco brings in way too much money. Why would they do that? I get it. I get it. The racing is not the best. And they did try with this mandatory two-stopper. But why would they get rid of Monaco when Monaco brings in the amount of money that Monaco brings into the sport and the history? And hey, sometimes you just gotta take your losses, man. And I love Monaco. I think hopefully we'll get some more competitive racing in the near future. So let's see what happens in 2026. I hope so, because I think it's a great track. The cars are just far too big for Monaco, and you just cannot overtake. But fingers crossed. Now, what I really want to talk about is the team game that some of these teams and drivers played. More specifically, Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadger. For the junior team, they really held their own today. They really held their own. Liam Lawson was the sacrificial lamb today for Isaac Hadger. Isaac Hadger, as we know, qualified fifth, and we know that Monaco is a qualifying game. Like, if you qualify well, you finish well. And with that, Liam Lawson held back the rest of the pack so Isaac Hadger could get his first free pit stop, and then he could get his second free pit stop. And in result, he honestly Loki kind of helped the Haas's as well, because Ocon was right in the mix too, and in result got a free pit stop as well. And they just played the team game so well that it became a point where it could have threatened the front of the pack, which I don't think it really would have. But yeah, again, one safety car, one red flag can change the results of anything in Monaco. And I think that the Racing Bulls did so well with playing their team game, and it really paid off if you think about it, because they finished in the points, both drivers. They have Lawson finish eighth, and Isaac Hadjar finished sixth. So shout out to Racing Bulls. And then honestly, the Williams did the exact same thing. And the Williams is where it gets a little bit controversial, because Sainz was holding up the rest of the pack so bad for Alex Albon to get those free pit stops. Yo, there was a point where it was, I get it. And again, there's nothing in the rule book that says you can't really. But it was so bad because, like, when the front of the field, so like the Norrises and the Leclercs were trying to lap these cars because that's how far back they were, it was, oh man, the blue flags were just, well, Lando first said it. He said, why are there no blue flags? And the team was checking on it. And Charles was like, what did he say? This is ridiculous, or something along those lines. He was very frustrated because obviously when you're trying to navigate through traffic, you're losing time. You're losing time to the driver in the lead. And that's what was happening with Charles. And same with Lando, if we're going to be honest. He was losing time trying to gain a gap ahead of Leclerc as well with the traffic. So it was extremely, extremely painful. But team strategy wise, I am not mad at it because Williams finished double points. You know who was mad at it though? George Russell. George Russell was not having a time. Oh my god, this was the race to forget for Mercedes. It was pretty much like we could have just retired and pieced out because we were not getting points anyway. We're not. But man, George Russell was not having a time. So, like I said, Sainz was holding up the pack so Alex Albon could get, because we had a mandatory two-stopper this race, as we know. Sainz holding up the pack, Alex Albon went, pit, came back, and then a few more laps, Alex Albon went, pit, came back, and then they switched positions, and I rewatched that like 3 times. They did it so well, because had it gone wrong, George Russell would have been right there to take 10th position, actually, away from Alex. So that could have gone really bad, but those two drivers really, they did it so well. And then George was on the radio saying that Alex was driving erratically, and that he was driving dangerously because he was driving so slow, which as a driver in a Formula One car, I can imagine how painful that must feel. And I really wonder how their friendship's going to recover after this one. I'm kidding. They'll probably be fine. They may have a nice heated discussion, but I think they'll be okay. Hey, this is why I always said drivers aren't friends, because when you're in direct competition with your friend, are they really your friend? And we saw that on both ends today, because George then cut the corner because he was like, I'm no longer waiting behind this slow Williams. This dirty air is taking me out. And if I can potentially get a point, sure. Why not? But George then cut the corner and got ahead of Albon. So at first I thought he was able to get a proper overtake over Alex because we didn't see it. But lo and behold, we saw that he cut the corner, and then Alex went on the radio saying, I think he's just going to take the 5-second penalty. And he was like, did he say something else? I think he said something along the lines of like, that's not good. I can't remember verbatim what he said, but he was like, that's cheap. The commentators were like, or Jordan Palmer was not happy with that. DC was like, I get the frustration with George. But again, it's cheap. And as we know, if one driver can get away with doing something like that, then who's to say the ripple effect for future races? That's what you have to think about. And I don't know what I think George was just driving angrily, and the frustration was palpable. It was there. But he cut the corner, and they were like, just give the position back. They came on the radio. Mercedes came on the radio to George, just get the position back. And George was like, no, I'm just going to take the penalty. Now, I don't think he realized what kind of penalty he was going to get. I do not think he realized what kind of penalty he was going to get. No, actually, George said that Alex was driving dangerously and he almost crashed into him. I don't know if I believe that from the replay. I do not know if I believe that. I think he was like, F it, I'm just going to cut the corner and I'm going to take this penalty and take the loss. However, they threw the book at George and they said, Actually, actually, you're not going to do that, and we do not agree with that, and you're going to get a drive-through penalty. And mind you, at this point, Mercedes was the only team who did not pit yet. They had 0 pit stops. Zero pit stops. And what I was thinking was, I was like, I don't think it would have been as much of a loss had Mercedes pit earlier. And then, okay, it's like at least you have 1 pit stop down, then you have to do the drive through, but then you have only 1 more pit stop to do. But they had to do for George the drive through, then his first pit stop, and then his second pit stop, just back to back to back towards the end of the race. And I was like, man, you guys just are having a terrible, terrible, terrible weekend. Kimmy also cut the corner, but I don't think his was on purpose, like George. I think he just genuinely, there was nowhere else for him to go. But then Bono was like, give that position back, and Kimmy gave that position back, and he got his pit stops as well. But this was a race to forget for Mercedes. This was a race of strategy for Williams, and genuinely they ate that. And the thing is like, as much as George was mad about Alex slowing down the pack, they did the same thing when they were getting their pit stops as well. So it's like, if they were in that position, we know they would have done the same thing, but it's because they were out of position, which is why the frustration was palpable, especially with that Mercedes versus the Williams. However, the Williams is doing pretty well this season, so everyone's fighting to finish. Everyone's fighting for those points. And, you know, when we really look at it, after this race, the standings are, for the WCC, the standings are taking McLaren out of the game. It's on for Red Bull, Mercedes, and now Ferrari. Like, baby, I'm not gonna say too much, but Ferrari is slowly but surely, they are getting there. They are getting there. But yeah, because what I think, let me check out the standings really quickly. F1 races, standings. If we go to the WCC, Mercedes is at 147 points, Red Bull Racing is at 143 points, and Ferrari is at 142 points. Like, for second position in the standings, it's all to play for right now. And that says a lot, because remember when Ferrari had that double DNF? Like, they really, to have a double DNF during one race weekend and still only be 1 point behind the Red Bulls for the standings, yeah. Yeah, so I'm very curious to see how the rest of the season goes, because as we know, next week, I think Mercedes is bringing a new floor, and next week is supposed to be Ferrari's big upgrade package, which, knock on wood, we hope works. But it's going to be a very, very interesting race to watch, I think. I'm excited for Spain. I'm excited for the remainder of the season. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, because obviously Monaco favored the Ferrari car. It did. The setup, it favored it, and I'm so mad at Ricky. I'm so mad at Ricky because Lewis Hamilton qualified really well for this season that he's had so far. He's qualified so well in Monaco, and because communication was not there from his race engineer, he got that 3-place grid drop. Oh, that made me so mad. That made me so mad. I was like, come on. It's just like, we just keep getting whacked. And I'm just like, I just want a good race. I just want a good, straight up race weekend for Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. I want, just from start to finish, from Friday to Sunday, I want that to happen. And I'm hoping and I'm hoping and I'm hoping that's going to be Spain. I really am, but I'm not going to say too much. I do want to say, like I said, the front of the pack honestly didn't really excite me today, which is crazy because it's Monaco and you want to see who wins Monaco. And I'm really happy that Lando Norris got his first Monaco win. I am. I would have loved for it to be Charles because, home favorite, always rooting for the home favorite. Like, why wouldn't you root for the home favorite on their home soil, right? I mean, the only hard part is Silverstone because there's so many of them. Obviously, I know who I root for Silverstone. But yeah, I do have to say Charles really did put up a fight. Max Verstappen, the menace. We have to talk about Max Verstappen, the menace, before I let you guys go, because he took me out. He was like, I'm not winning this race anyway. Let me make Lando Norris's job harder. Let me add some spice to this race since you guys are bored or whatever. Let me back up, back it up, back it up, and let Lando Norris put up a little bit of a fight. I was like, do you not want Lando to win, Max? But he really made Lando fight for it, and because he didn't have He still had one more pit stop to do, for those who don't know. He still had one more pit stop to do, and he waited to the very last lap to do his final pit stop because it was going to be a free one anyway. He was still going to finish the race fourth because of the gap between him and Hamilton. He was going to finish the race ahead anyway. So he was like, so let's wait for maybe a late virtual safety car. Let's wait for late safety car. Who knows? And he backed it up to the point where Lando was like, I need Oscar to start putting pressure on Charles. Like, it was that bad. But then Oscar's race engineer was like, Oscar, you gotta hurry it up because something could happen and you might be in the mix a little bit here. You might be in the mix a little bit here. Charles, I was really hoping Charles was just gonna say F it and just take like a late lunge. But maximum points for the team. He still did get a Ferrari podium on home soil. So a win is a win, but it's not the win, unfortunately. But we'll try again next time. We will try again next time. Max Verstappen actually, like, he took me out because he actually had no reason to be doing all that. He had no reason to be doing all that. Like, dude, you weren't winning the race. He was like, let me lead the race in Monaco. I haven't led the race in Monaco in a couple of years now, fully to the point where I can go to the final lap. So let me do it this time. And I was like, is this like, what's going on here, bud? But yeah, Charles really fought for the win. And now, like I said, how the WCC is on, the WDC is back on, maybe, between the two McLarens, because there's only a 3-point gap between Oscar and Lando now. And it's going to be interesting. This was not Oscar's weekend. Monaco was not for Oscar. I'm so curious for Spain. I'm not going to say anymore because I feel like I'm just a jinxer. So I'm just going to shut up now. And we will see how Spain goes. I hope it's a really exciting race for us. And I hope for us, for Ferrari, but also just like in general, I hope it's a really exciting race for us. And I hope we get some good Formula One action. You never know until you know, and the fight is not over until the fight is over for the WDC and for the WCC, and I just hope we have a very exciting championship on our hands. I really do. And that's all I have to say for you guys today. How did you guys like Monaco? How did you guys like this race? I thought it was an interesting race. And if we keep the mandatory two-stopper and with the new regulations, if things work out the way Formula One is hoping for them to work out with these new regs, I think Monaco could be really, really good again. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you all for sitting here and watching this. And if you're listening to the audio, thank you for listening. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful day.